They screwed us once again. Yesterday, Emmy nominations came out, Jill. We weren't up for any. What's going on?
My understanding is Emmy is friendly and we're slated for the enemy.
What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new episode of Good Guy, Bad Guy. I'm Daniel Cormier. That's Chael Sonnen. Chael P, let me tell you something, man. Some of the most fun times happen before the show whenever you're trying to figure out your audio. Because, if you weren't such a genius, we could never get the audio working on this show.
I appreciate you saying that. And you know what? I hate being the guy that holds it up. I hate the guy that goes, oh, I can't hear. You've got to do it again for me. I fib about it all the time and say I hear you perfectly. Daniel, some days I got nothing. Hard to play along.
Hard to play along. Chael, now, playing along, when you're in a rivalry, right? At times it's give and take. At times, one guy can be a little more serious than the other guy. Some guy's just trying to make money while the other guy's taking everything to heart. Dude, Conor McGregor and Khabib fought a few years ago. We all thought that Conor was of the understanding that you can't just make business with Khabib Nurmagomedov. Well, the UFC gave us a deeper look into this rivalry this week when they released the audio from when Khabib was finishing Conor, and it was all cuss words. It was a relief, but almost more anger because he held so much animosity towards that man. Chael, when you listen to that audio and you look at the reactions, how in the world could Conor have missed that it meant that much to Khabib, especially the insults towards his family?
It was such a juxtaposition of understanding, wasn't it? Like when Conor says it's business, he's revealing to him. He's letting the curtain down. However, I believe that Conor was also of the mind, you already knew this. Why am I having to tell you this? You know good and well this is just business. But it was like Khabib didn't. When you got
He didn't.
how personal it was. And Conor let us know at all the press conferences how he was feeling, and it was entertaining and it was fun. But Khabib never quite let us in on the angry side, on how much it upset him. And you know what, Daniel? I cannot relate. I have been passionate and I've been upset in fights before like Khabib, but I could never tell the opponent. I didn't have the energy. I never had the confidence that if I had a position in the first round or a position in the second round, even if it was dominant up until that point, I don't have a full understanding that we're going to revert these spots by the end of the night. So I would keep it in and let it out afterwards. I was so surprised that Khabib was able to do two things at one time. He was so reserved during the buildup to this fight. He was even reserved when he got attacked with the bus. He let it all out, and that audio really spoke volumes, and it told me a side of that rivalry that, in fairness, I did not know existed.
Chael, you remember whenever Conor and Khabib had the pre-fight press conference, and Conor McGregor made it a point to be late all the time, because when you're the guy that coins the phrase red panty night and everybody starts hoping for red panty night, you become almost like subservient to him. Like at times he's done it to Michael Chandler, where you kind of play his game. We have seen multiple people knowing that a press conference at 2:00, Conor shows up at 3, and they just sat there. And they just waited and waited and waited until Conor came, and then the show would go on. Do you remember when Khabib said, you guys got 5 minutes. If he's not here, I'm going to take a few questions, then I'm leaving. He goes, I'm not doing that. I'm not playing this game. But all those things, for as much as he felt disrespected by the comments about his family, the comments about his dad, the comments about everything, even that action there felt disrespectful to Khabib because he never wanted to feel like Conor McGregor could be entitled in response to him and in regards to him. So he goes, I'm not wasting my time. If I can be a pro, he should be a pro. If I'm held accountable, he should be held accountable. But I knew from being close to him that when he started talking about his dad and he started saying all those negative things about his dad, I knew, Chael, that this rivalry or this fight was going to go to a different place. Because the one thing you don't do in regards to that is talk about those guys' fathers. Because in that culture, they hold the father on in such high regard that when you take a shot at them, you really get the entire village or the entire community. So it wasn't just him insulting Khabib and Khabib's dad. He was really insulting the guy that can essentially be called the father of all those Dagestani fighters because he put so much into those young athletes. That fight, dude, was so filled with emotion. And if you remember being in the building that night, Chael, it was a special night from the very start of the walkouts.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting point that you bring up about Nurmagomedov Sr. because everybody watching this understands when there's a back and forth, there is a line. Now, whether that's going to stop at your mama jokes or something along these lines, but there is a line. You might even remember Conor versus Mayweather. The foot was on the other shoe, if you will. Shoe was on the other foot. You know how this goes. Floyd was in possession of an Irish flag. One of the fans handed it. They were handing it for Conor. I think they wanted to sign it. But Floyd is the one that grabbed it. And I remember this moment. And I remember thinking that, what's he going to do with this flag? Like, everything has just changed when Floyd became in possession of the flag. And there was about a 2 count. 1, 2. And Floyd ended up turning and he handed it to Conor. And I remember being relieved. I remember going, oh, thank goodness. Because perhaps that didn't mean anything to Floyd, but it would to so many other people. And it would have changed the moment in a negative way. When I brought up that reference about your mama jokes, there really isn't a thing in our culture about your papa jokes. So I think that Conor thought it was fair game, right? He went on the dad, not the mom. I don't think Conor understood. He went too far.
Chael, do you think that Conor McGregor, because of his interactions with Floyd Mayweather, thought he could bring that build back to the UFC? Because remember, him and Floyd, and even in that instance, Chael, where you said Floyd hands him the flag because he sees it as disrespectful, he was with another man that wanted to do business. No matter what Floyd or Conor said about each other, it was always business. Then they hugged after the fight, after they fought. Do you believe that build to that mega fight is why he thought he could come back into MMA with Nurmagomedov and kind of take it that far, not knowing? Because to me, I just don't understand how he didn't understand that he was going too far.
Okay, and there's a couple of sides to the psychology here. First off, to your question directly, yes. But Daniel, do not ever forget, it's also clear now, right? We can all stand back now and look at that and have Dana tell us that was the largest draw in pay-per-view of all time. We go, yeah, of course it was. We could do all of those things. It wasn't leading into it. Khabib had asked for countless fights. He had countless finishes. He had an undefeated streak. He finally sat on Dana's car and left his hat. Dana never came back to the car. Khabib took a picture of the hat on the car. I mean, I'm just sharing for you. It's simple as that is for marketing. You have to remember this time frame. Khabib Nurmagomedov was not a pay-per-view star. He was not somebody you could trust in your main event of pay-per-views. And frankly, there was nothing new about him. He was just standing opposite Conor. The reason I remind you of that, Conor McGregor started working double time. He started not only doing what Conor does and what we expect him to do, not only the entertainment and the flair, he knew if I want to get paid against this unknown Russian who they call Khabib, I don't know if that's a first name, last name, or a nickname, at that time, I'm going to have to go extra hard. And that was what Conor's thoughts were. Conor knew there was a line. He just kept moving it. He kept pushing it. Okay, the building is sold out. Okay, some more t-shirts are selling. Conor was just trying to do his job. He didn't understand at that point. Star. The Khabib did have a community. They were just a quiet community. Everything was so obvious once it was over.
Yeah, once it was over. But Chael, as we kind of wrap this conversation, you also remember, right? Conor really did help to make Khabib. He gained 8 million Instagram followers overnight after that incident inside the Octagon. Khabib became a global superstar. Chael, the fight that Khabib had when Conor beat Eddie Alvarez to become double champ, Khabib was on a prelim still. He was still a prelim fighter. So for as much as he might hate Conor McGregor, he does owe a lot to him in this regard. It really did make him a star, as many people that fight Conor McGregor have experienced. But the one thing I've learned about fighting Conor McGregor is you can fight him And while the platform seems bigger, you don't gain unless you beat him. Once you beat him, your star rises to a level that you can't even comprehend. One guy that was the beneficiary of that was Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier fought again for the lightweight championship at UFC 302. Dustin Poirier said in the Octagon that night he might be walking away. But now for 3 weeks, chill, 3 shows in a row, multiple YouTube videos, we speak about what Dustin doing next. So I guess the retirement's out the window. He listed guys, or he was given a list of guys by John Anik and Kenny Florian, Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, Volk, Gaethje, Holloway, Oliveira, or Colby Covington. They said, Dustin, are you sure it will be one of these guys that you're going to fight? Dustin's response, chill. And I don't know if he's smarter than the rest of us, so he's playing the game. His response was, yes, I can tell you, when I fight, it will be one of them. If I fight again, it will be one of them. So he kind of confirmed. Then he goes, if. So I don't know, Chael, if he's forgetting the script. I don't know what he's doing, but he's got us interested, and we're talking about it every single week.
Yeah. He is definitely willing to fight again, Daniel. And I do agree that there is a dialogue and a vernacular that he uses that sometimes you're not certain. But look, this isn't interrogation. This is a volunteer army. Hey, Dustin, is your hand still up or is your hand now gone down? I take him at his word. Everything that he said, I'm going to summarize it into one sentence that he actually did say, which is, I will do it again. And the one more, he is very clear. If he does it again, it will be the last one. And he will do it if there is something interesting. Now, all of those names that you mentioned would qualify as interesting. And therefore, for him to say to you, yes, it will be one of them, means he's planning to fight again. He would fight one of those guys, but the UFC hasn't quite made that step. Dustin Poirier, his goal here is to not confuse the audience. His goal is to level with the audience, and he's doing his best. It's just a tricky situation when you need the UFC, an opponent, and yourself. He is at least letting us know you can count on him. That is how I'm interpreting this.
Oh, that's a different way. I never thought of it that way. Like chill. And once again, that's why you're the smartest man in mixed martial arts. You know, I tell you every single week, I very rarely come across a guy that is on my level in terms of mixed martial arts thought. You are one of those gentlemen, chill, and I tip my hat to you for it. Now, when it comes to who I want to see Dustin fight, it's got to be Nate Diaz or it's got to be Colby Covington. I think Nate Diaz or Colby Covington, because these two fights can happen at welterweight. He doesn't have to cut the weight. They're fun, and they both have a history with Dustin Poirier. Nate Diaz and Dustin were scheduled to fight at UFC 230 in Madison Square Garden. Nate got hurt or Dustin got hurt, so I ended up fighting. Dustin Poirier and Colby Covington have had multiple public spats that would lead to a great fight. I want to see him fight at 170. I want to see him in the time where he doesn't have to cut the weight. He doesn't have to suck himself down. And then chill, when you start seeing guys fight in weight classes that they don't necessarily belong to, maybe the championship aspirations are gone, at least for now. We have a very clear idea of where their career is. So while the fights are still big, they don't have to feel overwhelming for the fighter, and they can go out there and really compete to the best of their ability without that pressure that comes with always being in such big fights that have so much meaning. Granted, a fight with Nate, a fight with Colby will still both mean something to Dustin because you want to win. But it's not like fighting Islam Makhachev for the belt or Charles Oliveira for the belt. This one is about winning and losing, making a boatload of money at a weight class that you don't even compete in, because there's no reason to put yourself through that when you're fighting just fun fights.
Yeah. Most important thing that you just said there, and I was really trying to regurgitate all of that, but the most important thing, Daniel, I think was the final two sentences, because when you have the matchmaking, when you have however this is going to go, we're in a unique situation. We have had a couple of champions before say this is the last one. I'll fight anybody you got, but this is going to be it, and they're expecting the number one contender. We've never had a guy that's a contender, but he's just so popular with the fans. He's so doggone loved, and he's done so many things where they're going to say this is my last one. I'm going to come in. I am going to rattle everything that you have. I'm going to take the rankings. I'm going to turn them upside down. I'm not only going to take myself out of them, I'm likely to take another guy with me. That's how skilled I am. I do agree with you. It's probably going to be at 170 pounds. I do agree with you. A lot of that names on the list were very good. But before we can get that done, he is going to have to convince Dana, which in this unique situation, I predict he will be able to. I predict that he has enough respect built up in the office. But Daniel, where are you going to put him? If you put him with another top guy and really rattled the deck. And it's for all of those reasons that I'm going to see your list, which I think is beautiful, and I'm going to add to it. There happens to be a fight coming up, and it happens to be against Luque and Nick Diaz. And if Nick Diaz is to have an upset and is to still be available with a win and he's not rattling the rankings, I think that becomes a very viable, at this point, unseen option for Dustin Poirier.
I think it's so important right now to make sure that you match these guys up with people who, if they win, they don't feel like you got to thrust them back into the championship picture. You got to put them in fights where, while it matters, again, like I said, it's just a fun fight. We get to see our favorite fighters for a long time. Chael, one guy, though, that doesn't just want to fight fun fights is Khamzat Chimaev. He said he wants to come back in October for the pay-per-view, but he's calling for a title fight, Chael. I don't get it. I don't understand how he was scheduled to fight Robert Whittaker. Sean Strickland is a very viable number one contender. Robert Whittaker goes out on the day that they were supposed to fight and knocks out a young, impressive athlete. He doesn't get to fight. But then he goes off of that, he wants a title fight. How's it make sense? Chael, I'm asking you to make it make sense to me. Because to me, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense at all.
The story of Khamzat Chimaev is a hard one, and I'm doing my best there to say his name correctly. But the story is an interesting one. Like, we have had three media darlings in the entire history of our sport. That where they started and how they just bloomed became so big and it became so fast. It was no recipe that our great marketing teams or PR teams could ever help to emulate for somebody else. Of course, I'm talking about Conor McGregor. Of course, I'm talking about Ronda Rousey. And I'm talking about Chimaev. When he burst onto the scene and he was going to smash everybody, and he was Khabib 2.0, and you didn't know what weight class it was going to be, 70 or 85, and frankly, it didn't matter. We were going to book him in each weight class, and we were going to book him as close together as we possibly could. That was so red hot, Daniel, and somebody let that go. Somewhere when that let go, all of a sudden, you've got Chimaev speaking up for himself, which I loved what he said. He said he wants to fight for a title. By the way, I watched him fight Kamaru Usman, and I was told as a viewer the winner of that fight was going to be fighting for a title. Now, I know we're in a very different time. That whole division's passed. In fact, the person that was a champion then, Sean Strickland, is now battling out for contendership. I'm just sharing for you the fact that Chimaev is now having to be the one to tell his own story. When the media, they were all over him and they were red hot. Chimaev made another a statement within that same quote, partner, and he said there has never been anybody in the UFC that's won 7 fights in a row and not fought for the title. Now, we don't have to break that down and bring up the Damian Maias and the Matt Brown situations. Let's not take that literal.
Matt's
However,
Holloway.
if Chimaev wouldn't put a Sure, and if Chimaev not put a period at that into the sentence, if he would have put a comma and added to it in this fashion, there is nobody that has won their first 7 fights in the UFC and not for a title. Brock Lesnar was 1-1. Conor hadn't gotten to 5 straight. Cain Velasquez got in the UFC because everybody was so scared of him on the open scene, and he only had to do 5 fights. That is actually a record that Chimaev holds. Not just that it was his 7 consecutive, it was his first 7. And it doesn't necessarily change the scenario. You start to have a debate of, but does 170 and 185 combined matter? The larger point that I'm trying to make for you is now we have the guy that everybody said is the guy. Put him in there, coach. Put him in there with Kamaru Usman. This is 3 and 4 years ago. He'd be the favorite over Kamaru Usman. This is 3 and 4 years ago. He was a favorite over Leon Edwards. This was 3 and 4 years ago, Daniel. And now he, in a different weight class while still undefeated, is having to remind people. It's as though they all must have forgot.
You know what the problem is? It's like the rest of the guys are still competing. And because they're still competing, it almost like pushes him back. But if he would have fought Robert Whittaker and had he won that fight, then there's no denying that you could put him in front of anybody. and you can't question it. But it's just because he has not had that opportunity to go fight Robert Whitaker, the former champion, the guy that, if many believe if you beat him, you go fight for the belt, right? Happened for Drake is he became the champion off of Rob. If you beat Robert Whitaker, they know you're ready. He didn't get that chance, so he now is in a weird situation. I think he should fight against Sean Strickland to see who's next for the middleweight championship of the world. All right, Chael. So ESPN did an anonymous survey, and let's take a look at some of the results. The first one is the most overrated fighter in the UFC. 5 votes went to Khamzat Chimaev, 2 went to Francis, 2 went to Ian, 2 went to Sean Strickland. Chael, do you agree with that Khamzat Chimaev is the most overrated fighter in the UFC? In MMA. In MMA,
I'm a bit surprised
actually.
about it. Hey, as a matter of fact, he's not a champion, so why are you pulling him down? He's not the contender is not the same as a number one ranking. Number one contender is whoever has a signed bout agreement against the champion. I'm only telling you that as I don't know we got him high enough. This guy's completely undefeated. It's to the point that he's been announced contender, then it's going away. We're hearing rumors that he's got travel issues, and that would slow somebody down. Somebody that's an international champion, a world champion that can't leave a specific location just by definition would have a very hard time getting those opportunities, but I'm sharing high enough. This is a guy that's beaten former champions. This is the guy that won a number one contenders match, but did not become the number one contender. And I only share with you, it does seem like the impenetrable Titanic, the unsinkable Titanic, has hit a bit of an iceberg. I agree. Like, we can see a roadmap that we used to not believe existed, but to see a roadmap and be able to go out there and exploit it against the best fighters in the world, nobody's done that. Patting a guy on the back and saying, you're really good, you're really young, and by gosh, you're undefeated. That all sounds right to me.
Yeah, these people are out of their minds. Whoever voted this and put him as the most overrated guy in mixed martial arts is crazy. I mean, he's got wins over Kamaru Usman. He's beaten everybody in front of him. People love Kevin Holland. He beat Kevin Holland in a round. This guy's not overrated and at all. Like, there's no way Khamzat Chimaev should be on that list at all. It should be other guys. There are so many fighters that you know the type of fighter that you may question if they're overrated is a young guy that wins a couple fights and then he starts to feel like the world's being thrown at him. Paddy Pimblett, right? He was on the list. You don't know. We'll find out against Bobby Green whether or not he's overrated because now he gets a true test. Bo Nickel. We don't know what happens with Bo Nickel down the line. We don't know, but to have Khamzat up there, absolutely crazy. Chael, the next one was the most underrated fighter in mixed martial arts. Underrated. Corey Sandhagen had 5 votes. I mean, nobody else got a vote. Leon, Tatiana, AJ McKee, Michael Chandler were all on that list. But Corey Sandhagen got 5 votes as people think he is the most underrated fighter in all of mixed martial arts.
Daniel, I think maybe I'm having a hard time knowing what our definition of rated is. Just for example, Corey Sandhagen is ranked ahead of Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling beat Corey Sandhagen. Yeah. This is just off the top of my head. Fantastic fighter. He's also a main event fighter. I mean, they bring him out here again off the top of my head. His fight with Rob Font won all 5 rounds because it was a main event. That looks rather celebrated. They were going to give him a title opportunity. He passed on it, a vernacular that is known in our industry as pulling a Sandhagen. I only bring that to you because I just don't know that he's lowly rated. He's definitely one of the guys that's being looked at. He's got a Nurmagomedov in the weight class who's completely undefeated, so there seems to be a little bit of the battle in the media with that. I just don't know that he's low rated.
Kind of where he belongs. Kind of where he belongs. I mean, Corey Sandhagen gets respect, and you should, because the Rob Font fight was 5 rounds, but he also did it to Marlon Vera over 5 rounds and beat Marlon Vera very bad. I'm going to tell you one guy that I think is very underrated. I think Leon Edwards is still underrated. I mean, people still believe that he can get beat by just about anybody when in reality, I don't know the last time this guy's lost a fight. The only thing that Leon Edwards has on his record negatively in the last 13 or 14 fights is that no contest with Bilal Muhammad. He had 110 in a row before he went to fight Bilal, had the no contest. Then he won the next two against Kamaru Usman and beat Kamaru. No, he won three since that fight because he beat Usman twice, where he was getting beat, got the knockout at the end. Then he goes to England and he beats Usman even worse and more decisively than the first fight, where you can't say it was luck because he won a decision. Then he goes, he completely shuts out Colby Covington. Yet and still, people go, man, I got Bilal Muhammad. So many people say, I got Bilal Muhammad. I don't know how much Leon Edwards has to prove for people to go, well, this dude's just really, really good, and I don't know who can beat him. All right, Chael, last one. One rule change that people wanted to see in mixed martial arts. So, allow kicks and knees to a grounded opponent. Allow 12 to 6 elbows and 5 judges. Allowing kicks and knees to a grounded opponent was the winner, getting 8 votes. Your thoughts on this?
It's interesting. I am not for anything that resembles an LA gang riot. I want it to look like sport. This was tested over in an organization known as Pride, and they had what was called the soccer kick, which is to find if a guy is on his hands and knees, the other person's standing, he comes in and treats his head like you would a soccer ball. I don't even like to say it. I would never do that to somebody, and I'm as ruthless of a competitor as I can think of. I would not do that to somebody given the opportunity, and I don't want to see somebody do it to somebody else. Now, I only bring that to you because defend yourself at all times is very important. And it's very important not just for the fighters. It's also important for the government that oversees these things and comes up with the rules. A way to do that. You must give me a way. You can't ban the techniques and holds that I would need in a certain situation to defend myself at all times, but I'm not positive where the kick to the grounded opponent comes in. I'm open to it and I'll listen. But they also allowed kicks at one point within our strategies, and they didn't allow stomps. And the way they came to was a little bit confusing. You've got the same tool, which is your foot. What angle that tool comes from and convincing me that there's a meaningful difference, I think is where we get a little bit lost in the nuances. I will admit this, we have tremendous leadership with the ABC that's overseeing these things, and they are open to discussion and thought, but sometimes they do lose me on those definitions.
You know, Chael, I wouldn't want to see it. I don't want to see kicks at a grounded opponent. Could you imagine someone getting dropped and when they're on the ground, the person just boots them in the face? That would be horrible. And it would seem as though it would play into all the... Look, the late Senator John McCain used to always say that he did not like mixed martial arts. It was barbaric. It was all many... He said so many other things derogatory about the sport. When you go back to that, where guys are on the ground or girls on the ground and another person's like stomping in their face or trying to kick them, it makes it look like that sport that they were trying to get banned from so many states around the United States. I say keep it clean. I say make it look like a sport, like you said. Don't do. I get it. People always long for the old thing, Chael. People long for Pride. Pride was the best. This was the best. Chael, do you remember when you were a kid? There was this candy bar that you just loved. But then when you're an adult and you go back and you taste it, you're like, well, that's not very good. It's too sweet. There's too much sugar. It doesn't taste good. But as a kid, you loved it. That's how we always like view things from the past in a different light than they truly are. So when you see that, you see those kicks that you saw when you were 19, 20 watching this, as a 35, 40-year-old man, you're like, ugh, this is kind of disgusting. So no, I don't need to see kicks to a grounded opponent because I'm not trying to live like I'm in the 80s and 90s anymore. It's 2024, baby, and DC is here for it. Guys, that's another episode of The Good Guy and the Bad Guy for Chael Sonnen. I'm Daniel Cormier. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. Also on ESPN, MMA's YouTube. We are here with you 2 days a week, and we never miss. We never miss, baby. We never miss. It's DC and Chael. We love you.